Here's the thing. I'm in my office and I have a fill on the beach. What I kind of did was I wrote a blog, and I then weighed up the pros and cons and thought my blogs aren't as well patronised as they once were, and my vlogs are increasingly more patronised. And I don't know why. Perhaps people like watching videos rather than actually using their eyes and reading things. This might have something to do with what I'm about to talk about, because I'm not going to use a script, but I am going to use it as a kind of prompt. So if occasionally I disappear and I look like I'm over there talking, it's because I am. It's because I'm reading off of something. Because some of the stuff that I've put in here, I kind of think it's important, But anyway, look, one thing I have realised with this brand new phone is it eats up bytes when I do photographs, and I mean I can obviously change the settings, but I quite like it as it is. So in minute and 32, and I've just waffled. Basically, I came to this conclusion that Brexit is a kind of 21st century postmodern vampire. It's kind of, as I put here, the problem with Brexit is it's the most eggy curate's egg ever. It's both the gift that keeps on giving while simultaneously takes and takes and takes and takes, leaving you down and fatigued and angry. This is Brexit is a vampire, an existential life sucker. Brexit is also an abusive partner, but it's also a gentle lover. But it's all about perspective. And some people some people couldn't see an abusive partner as long as they have a hole in their ass. We know this. We've met people in the past. We know people who do not accept what everybody else who knows them knows. So it shouldn't be a surprise. Going on with this, for some people, Brexit is the holy grail, the culmination of the end of the beginning of the return of the British Empire, an opportunity to become the fifth richest country on our own rather than through membership of the organisation that has helped us remain at number 5. For some people, Brexit is the precipice, the door that we should never go through, the end of freedom, the death of logic, and a massive opportunity for all of those laws that we have that protect the poor to be replaced with British-only laws that benefit the rich and condemn people like me and you to a Victorian future. But it's been 2.5 years, since the vote, and to be perfectly honest with you, people are absolutely sick to the back teeth with the entire thing. They feel sucked dry by this constant Brexit on the radio, on the TV. Everybody's talking about Brexit. Phil's talking about Brexit. Bob's talking about Brexit. Everybody's talking about Brexit because Brexit is becoming the kind of, I'd say elephant in the room, but the elephant in the room is the unspoken thing in the room. That everybody knows about, but nobody wants to talk about. Brexit's a kind of antithesis of the elephant in the room. It's in the room and everybody wants to talk about it. And if you don't want to talk about it, everybody else wants to talk about it. So it's not even like you've got a choice. And the way things are looking at the moment is there's never going to be a satisfactory outcome. As I put here, I don't mean satisfactory in economic terms. I mean in a way that will unite this incredibly divided country. Seriously, listening to the radio and watching the TV, regardless of what way you think they're biased, this way or that, it's like Brexit has given British people a license to be considerably more nasty publicly than they probably have for 40 odd years. And oddly enough, in my blog that I wrote up here, I wrote this. This is a country where just yesterday a study on ethnicity and employment concluded that since 1969 there are more opportunities for non-white people, but people of colour will be discriminated against based on their names or places of birth just as much as they would have been before the Race Relations Board was needed to be established because of an overt racism to people who weren't white and now aren't British. The study said racism is just more guarded in 2019 than it was in 1969, and it concluded that non-whites, specifically those of Afro-Caribbean origin, are still twice as likely to be arrested, suspected of criminal activity, or, in my words, of a dodgy persuasion than your average English-accented white person. So, essentially, even though Brexit wasn't all about immigration, pretty much in a lot of people's eyes, that's all it was about. It was about foreigners. It was about having too many of them. And if you have a mindset like that, it's kind of like trying to tell you that if you support Manchester United, you should support Manchester City at the moment because they're far more successful. That's anathema to the average football fan. And the idea is if you think there's too many foreigners in this country, doesn't matter how much proof. And trust me, there is no proof that there are too many foreigners in this country because too many is a subjective term, and B, one person's too many is somebody else's not enough. Because this is what this is about. This isn't really about what's good for the country anymore. This is about what is good for the individual. And I can give you 10 reasons why the arguments that you come up with, why we should leave with no deal, won't work. And you'll still come up with an 11th, and then a 12th, and then a 13th. And then they'll start to get ridiculous, but you'll still come up with them because it's what you believe. I mean, you would think, I was thinking about this. I listened to somebody on the radio today, and somebody said they need to understand people who think that leaving on a no deal or doing this, that or the other, or people who believe that, we have illegal immigrants in this country that are getting universal credit. Universal credit is... Seriously? If you seriously think that there are illegal people in this country without any sort of British national sort of documentation, because basically bear in mind that if you aren't a British person, you normally have to carry a passport with you. If you haven't got any kind of proof that you should be here, do you really think that that person who can't prove that he should be in this country is more likely to walk into a job centre and get universal credit than somebody that can't even push themselves along in a wheelchair? Because if you think that, there's no hope for you. Seriously, there won't ever be any hope for you, because what is the point of trying to reason with somebody who actually thinks that somebody can just walk into a job centre and get some kind of benefits when we have people who are experts at getting benefits who can't get benefits? But if you want to believe that, you better believe it. But equally, don't go around saying that illegal immigrants get all of this money off the government and there's loads and loads of homeless soldiers who are having to live on the streets because of it, because the two don't correlate. Even if there was illegal immigrants in this country claiming benefits, the reason we have so many homeless soldiers in this country who are homeless is the government's fault. You can't blame anybody else. It's not the fault of, migrant workers from the EU coming over here to do all the jobs that the Brits don't want to do. Because trust me, most of the menial jobs that the migrants come over here and do, you won't be able to get our people to do. And if, like Nigel Farage, you think that what you do is you make the long-term unemployed do all those jobs. Think of it this way. If your mother's getting old or your dad's getting old and he's about to be put into a care home, who would you rather have wiping his arse? A woman who's come over here specifically to do that job, who's got experience at doing that job and will treat your parents with a lot of respect, which I find a lot of migrants do despite the fucking abuse that we hurl at them? Or do you want some feckless 17-year-old who doesn't want the job and thinks that your parents are a fucking pain in the arse and they're stopping him from sitting around the back of the co-op getting stoned or pissed? Because that's what happens when you stop allowing people coming into this country. You get the people who don't want to do the jobs doing them. Anyway, I don't think this is the point here. You know, I actually put in my thing, you know, Brexit wasn't always about immigration, despite the fact that the only thing that Theresa May seems to be getting out of this is the freedom of movement being stopped, which of course also means that if you've got children or grandchildren that want to go abroad, they've got to jump through so many hoops to be able to do it. But you know, I hear people on the radio or see people on the internet every day saying, I don't care that my kids are going to suffer. I don't care that it's going to be really, really awkward. We've got out of the European Union. You know, that if you sat 10 of them down and said, come on, give me a reason give me one thing, just one thing that the EU has done that has severely damaged your life. Just one thing. I mean, we have a government who do things that severely damage our life on a daily, monthly, weekly, yearly basis. But the EU, they're so horrible, you know, they're so bad, you know, that we have to get away from them as soon as possible. But nobody ever seems to be able to give me one single thing that's made their life worse by us being in the EU. You know, that's really weird. And it's weird that even when they can give me a reason, it's pretty much A, never to do with them, or B, it's probably not the EU. It's probably our government, you know, because they set the laws, despite the fact that you don't think that they do because you voted for us to come out of the EU. But the truth is at the moment, the reason we're in this mess is purely and simply because our government are trying to sort out the mess, because a third of them want this, a third of them want that, and a third of them want the other. And how do you reconcile? But actually, it's not quite like that, because it's like a third of them want something vague, but there's a third of them want this and a third of them. So it's like they're all split into different factions. It's like you've got 27 different groups of individuals in the Houses of Parliament who want what's best for you or them, depending on what side of the house they sit on. You know, we're not going to resolve Brexit, and in some respects the best thing to do would come crashing out, so that there is no medicine, so that when you go into the local chemist to pick up your prescription of something like a radioactive isotope that you have to take because you've got cancer and they haven't got it and they don't know when it's going to come in, then perhaps you'll think, oh fuck, that was a bit stupid. I mean, at least I might not have liked us being in the EU, but it was really handy for getting things like life-saving medicines into our hospitals. No, I didn't have to wait for 6 weeks for it to come from the USA or from Venezuela or somewhere and have to sit in a customs warehouse waiting to be cleared just to make sure it actually is the radioactive isotope that I need for my cancer and not some kind of fucking dirty bomb that some terrorist has brought in, because we have no bloody trust with the people that we deal with. I mean, it's like taking an egg out of a cooked cake. For Christ's sake, you might think it's a great idea to leave the EU, but I don't know if you're going to think it's a great idea to leave the EU when the only thing you're fucking eating is turnips. Anyway, we're all fed up with it. This is the point. This was the whole point. It's like the 21st century vampire. You know, we can't escape it, and if we can't escape Brexit, we're being told by the mainstream media that it's bloody Jeremy Corbyn's fault. I mean, the man who's not in power, You know, it's Theresa May, who's been held in contempt of Parliament, who's massively lost the largest vote that a Tory or any other government has ever lost the vote by. Yet the news always seems to focus on Jeremy Corbyn. Haven't you noticed this? Haven't you ever thought to yourself, hang on a minute, is Jeremy Corbyn actually running the country? Because he must be. Because, I don't know, I watched the TV the other night. You know, they spent about 2 hours on the government being massively defeated in Theresa May's Euro deal, and they spent about 4 days talking about Jeremy Corbyn being defeated in a vote of no confidence, which they'd all been calling him to have anyway. He never called it because he didn't think he could win it, and he only called it last week as a point of principle because he wanted the point to be made that the government can get beaten by almost 250 votes, but they'll stick together when it means that they might not be in power anymore. This is nothing to do with whether Jeremy Corbyn will screw the country up or not. This is about individuals clinging on to power. And that's what Brexit has become now. They want to string it out as long as possible because they know nobody can solve the problem. The most simple thing to do would be to stay in and try to change things that we don't like. You know, if you have a genuine thing that you don't like about Brexit, get in contact with your MEP, your member of the European Parliament who you elected to represent you in the European Parliament, that you always seem to forget about when you say we have no, you know, they're a bureaucratic blah, 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 we have no say, they set the laws. We're part of them. Well, we were. You know. It's like being in a football team and saying, I don't want to be in this football team anymore, but I still want to play centre forward for you. Anyway, this is going to be huge because you spend more than 10 minutes on selfie mode and it takes a fortnight to transfer across to the thing. Seriously, all I'm trying to say is don't be swayed by some soundbite. Don't think that, you know, because Jeremy Corbyn has talked to terrorists before, that he's the only MP in the world who's ever done it. That makes him the worst person ever. There's a member of the DUP was a union in the Unionist Army. You know. There's basically a terrorist in the Tory party the propping up the Tory party. You know, so don't, you know, if you're going to go around saying that someone's a communist, then you've got to go around saying someone's a fascist. You know, Caroline Lucas said yes, that's the leader of the Green Party, who I think has probably got a lot of integrity, that during her meeting with Theresa May was reading off of a script. Even during the moments of platitude, like she was being prompted to be nice to the person in the room. We've been told by people before who know her that she's not a particularly friendly person. And she's also come across as exceedingly obstinate. You don't lose the biggest vote in the history of, you know, politics and then just carry on regardless and say, well, and then invite all of the people in who want to come and talk to you and tell them, well, I don't give a fuck what you want because we're going to stick to my red lines. I mean, repeating yourself over and over and over and over and over and over again, hoping for a different answer, is called insanity. And trust me, I think this country has gone a little bit insane because we can read a headline in a newspaper owned by a billionaire who doesn't give a toss whether we're in Europe or out Europe because he'll still make money, and will believe everything they say. Or we won't, because, you know, we have this wonderful habit of saying, oh, I read it in the newspaper, so it must be true, or I read it in the newspaper, so it must be bollocks. You know, this is how contrary we have become through not allowing ourselves to think about things and getting caught up in almost a mob rule. Anyway, I'm amazed that Jonathan Pye can do these things so succinctly in about 2.5, 3 minutes, because while I'm not trying to be funny or anything else, I've got like 20 minutes. I mean, if this is any good and I put it up on Facebook and my blog and what have you, I'm going to be thinking, blimey, they should give me a radio show or something. FOT.